Welcome to my classroom. Our life is full of challenges. We have lots of problems in our life. These days we are going through a very difficult time because of this coronavirus. Today's topic is related to these problems of life. Today we are going to discuss about the most difficult poem prescribed by HS Council for class 11, Brotherhood, written by the Mexican poet Octavio Paz. The pronunciation of the surname is Paz in Mexican accent and Paz in English accent. The poem is based on a philosophical doctrine called Existentialism, and that is why the poem seems to be very difficult to understand. If you don't understand the philosophy behind it, you won't be able to understand a single word of the poem, even if you read it for 1,000 times. But once you get a grip on the philosophy, you will be able to understand the poem with its theme and its inner meaning within 10 minutes. So before we get to the topic, we have to understand what existentialism is. So, existentialism emerged from about 1930s to 1950s. The key figures of this philosophical doctrine are Soren Kierkegaard, Martin Heidegger, Friedrich Nietzsche or Nietzsche, and most importantly, Jean-Paul Sartre. If you look at the time period of the philosophical doctrine, one point becomes very clear that it is linked with the Great World Wars, the First World War and the Second World War. During that time, European people lost their faith in God and goodness and happiness and anything optimistic because of the massive and unimaginable devastation these two world wars caused. So, the thinkers began to think about life from a different perspective that is not at all divine. It's a concrete perspective of life with real man and with his real problems. Now, traditional philosophers think about life from a different angle. They think about something absolute. They think about something abstract. You may call it pure consciousness or God. Plato called it absolute essence. Kant showed us the structure of mind, and Descartes talked about cogito or the thinking I. Now, who is this thinking I? This I is not me. This I is not you. So who is this I? This I refers to someone who lives within us. Again, you may call it pure consciousness. But it's very difficult to realize or feel the presence of this pure consciousness or God within us. So, it's abstract and beyond our comprehension or our power of understanding. So it is very difficult for us to understand or to feel the presence of this pure consciousness in our mind. There is no room for real man with his real problems in these kinds of philosophies. Life, real life is absent here, but we need to deal with that. And that is why came up existentialism, which deals with real life, real human beings, real problems and everything concrete, not an abstract God or the pure consciousness. Now, we will focus on some important points of existentialism one by one. The first point that we need to focus on regarding this existential philosophy is consciousness. Now, if we take it for granted that the universe began with the Big Bang, then a new question arises. What had been there before the Big Bang? The traditional philosophers say it is pure consciousness or God, and out of this pure consciousness, the universe was born. Edmund Husserl said it, the transcendental ego or the transcendental I. Simply speaking, it's God. This is called Husserlian absolutism. Now, it's like a relay system. From this pure consciousness or the transcendental ego, we get a kind of self-consciousness. And from this self-consciousness, we get knowledge of the world around us. Now, Jean-Paul Sartre eliminated this transcendental ego or the transcendental I or the role of pure consciousness. Actually, he bracketed this pure consciousness. There is no role of pure consciousness in our life. Why? Because consciousness appears when it relates itself to an object. For example, if we see a mobile phone our consciousness comes out of this mobile phone. When we get connected to an object, when we see an object, when some object comes into our experience, our consciousness grows. So this consciousness is not a part of the being, it comes from outside. Okay, so consciousness is a consciousness of something. It is related to some object. It has nothing to do with any pure consciousness or transcendental ego or God, anything like this. So it comes from the external world. This is not pure consciousness or anything transcendental, abstract idea. So when we become conscious of something, at the same time, a different kind of consciousness comes to our mind. That is, I am not that thing. For example, if I am conscious of a camera in front of me, if I am conscious of a mobile phone in front of me, at the same time, another consciousness comes to our mind that I am not the mobile phone, that I am not the camera. For an example, if I look at the sky, I become conscious of the sky because my consciousness comes out of the sky. It doesn't come from within. All right? And at the same time, a different consciousness is born in our mind that I am not the sky. So it's a kind of negation or nihilism. So I always find myself in a mode of negation. This is how we always, separate ourselves from other things. So negation is inevitable in life. You can't avoid it. So we always in the mode of negation that I am this and that is that and I am not that. We are different beings. So this is transcendental consciousness. So this is the very important point that we need to understand. This is the first point that we should focus on to understand the poem. It is very much connected to the theme of the poem. The next most important point is existence precedes essence. This is the soul of existentialism. A theistic existentialist like Sartre believes that man first exists, then comes his essence. A man is born in the world, then he faces many possibilities, many options presented by life, and he is free to choose. He is free to decide what to do and what not to do. And through his choices, he makes his own essence. Essence means nature, essence means identity. So there is no role of God or there is no role of pure consciousness in the making of a man. Man is responsible for his own making, for making of his own essence. And this freedom of choice, this freedom to take decision might lead you to a devastation. This might cause anxiety, fear, tension in life. So a real man has always troubles in life because you have to take decision. You have to make a choice. You cannot be neutral because if you are neutral, you cannot make your essence. You cannot proceed. You cannot go forward in future. You would be static if you don't take decision, if you don't make any choice. And in the process of taking these decisions, in the process of making these choices, we get connected to others. For example, one British general decided to open fire on the crowd. And because of his choice of this option, many people died at Jallianwala Bagh. So, a choice of a particular person brings death to many people. This is how we are always connected in this world. You cannot live alone. We live in a community in which we affect one another. We cannot be alone. We cannot live alone. We are always connected with one another. So this is a very important point here because again it is related to the theme of the poem. The next point is being in itself and being for itself. This is the third point that we are going to focus on now. Aristotle said that everything changes with time, but existentialism rejects this view because there are lots of things around us that don't change. Because these things like a pen, a mobile phone, or a computer, a chair, a table, these things don't take any decision in life. They don't make any choice. And in this way, they are not able to make their own essence like a man. So these things are fixed. They are predestined. They don't change with the passage of time. So these things are called being in itself. Now, when we think about pure consciousness or God, one point becomes clear, that God is neither born nor dies. So God or pure consciousness is also a being in itself, because it doesn't change with time. It is fixed. It is permanent. So a man is not a God, because they are two different entities. A man is a being for itself. Why? Because man takes his own decisions. Man makes his own choices. When he is born in this world, he faces lots of possibilities, and out of these possibilities, he makes choices. He is free to decide what to do and what not to do, as I said earlier. And that is how he makes his own essence, and he gets changed with the passage of time. Okay, for example, I am now a teacher, but in future I could be something else. So I am capable to change myself. I am capable of making my essence. So in this way, a man is different from God or pure consciousness. A God is a being in itself, which doesn't change with time. A man is a being for itself, because a man is changed with time, because he makes his own essence. He has the potentiality of making his own essence. So a man is not a God. So there is a difference between being in itself and being for itself. Okay, and when these two different things confronts, a new consciousness grows in the mind of a being for itself. For example, when I look at the sky, I repeat the same example. When I look at the sky, I am a being for itself, and as I am not fixed, as I am not a thing, a consciousness comes out of the sky to me, that I am not the sky. I am a being for itself, and the sky is a being in itself, because the sky is a fixed entity. It is neither born nor it will die. It is permanent. It is eternal. So I am a man. It is the sky and a man. One is a being in itself, and another is a being for itself. So a being for itself is a man, because he makes his own decision, he makes his own choices, and that is how he makes his own essence. And a thing cannot do it. He is not changed with the time, so it is a being in itself. It is fixed. Okay, and the last point is very much related to this point, and the last point is man is nothing. And when I say this, man is nothing, I mean man is no thing. Now it is very easy to understand that a thing is a being in itself, because it doesn't change, and man is being for itself, because man changes with time. Man is able to affect others through his choices. Man makes his own essence. Man makes his own destiny. Man makes his own identity. But a thing is not capable of doing it. A thing is a fixed entity. He doesn't make any choice. So man is no thing. And the topic existence precedes essence is related to this fourth point. When it comes to the question of a man, it is existence precedes essence. As I said, man first exists, then he makes his own essence through his choices. Alright? But when it comes to the question of a thing like a pen, okay? So here what happens? Essence precedes existence. Because before the invention of this pen, of this device, of this tool, some people had thought about the utility of this pen. That means, in this case, in case of a pen or a mobile phone or a computer, essence came first, then came its existence. So when we talk about being in itself, essence precedes existence, and when we talk about being for itself, for example, man, it is existence precedes essence. So these two things are absolutely different, and when these two things confronts, being for itself gets a new consciousness that he is not being in itself. He is something different, who is alive, who is not a thing like a pen or a mobile phone. So now I think the ground is already prepared for the discussion of the topic. In my next video, I will discuss about the poem Brotherhood. Till then, goodbye.